I'm being joined on the program tonight by the Minister of Youth and Sports, Mr. Sunday Dare. He joins us from his office in Abuja. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for joining us tonight. And it's a pleasure for seeing you since you came back from the Olympics. Thank you so much. Let's get straight to it. It's the International Youth Day. But the question on the minds of an average Nigerian that is looking towards employment, jobs, opportunities. Many of them are looking for visas to travel out of the country. Issues of where they will go after their youth service corps program, the one-year mandatory NYSC program. These are some of the questions on the minds of an average Nigerian. And if you look at the unemployment rate today, as we speak, it's not a figure that one can be happy about. The question tonight, Honorable Minister, is what has the Buhari government done in the last 6 years to turn down the clock of the growing unemployment rate in Nigeria and the possibility of opportunities for an average Nigerian youth?
Thank you very much, Sheon, for this opportunity. And I want to first just congratulate all our youth on the International Day of the Youth being celebrated today. Of course, a symbolic event that draws attention to the skills, the talents, and also the issues concerning youth development. Now, the questions you raise agitating the minds of our youth, they are legitimate questions. Legitimate issues around what will happen after I leave college, what will happen if I'm looking for a job, how long will it take for me to get a job? And I think that in the last 6 years, the government of President Muhammadu Buhari has tried to change the fundamentals of youth development in our country. I speak to a new orientation that emphasizes not just certificates, but also the need to upskill our youths. In a digital world where it's very clear that there's a digital skills gap, we have seen a government that has paid attention to a concept of training into enterprise, that we need to upskill our youths, provide them training, but also training that leads into entrepreneurship or some kind of process that makes them self-starters. Now, Sheon, I can speak to almost 30 to 35 different youth-focused programs in the last 6 years under this president. They are domiciled in about 8 to 9 different ministries. And then you find them in departments and agencies of government. I can also speak to the fact that under the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, we have seen an attempt to start to invest in the skills, innovative ideas, enterprise of our youth, which is critical for development. That coincides perfectly with the focus of the AFDB. We talk about the NYIF that was signed by the President in Council July last year, a 75 billion naira youth investment fund for the first time that will invest directly in the skills and ideas of our youth. That's taking a bet on our youth. Recall that 5 years ago, the N-Power was also launched, the single largest youth empowerment program in sub-Saharan Africa. That is ongoing. The National Farmers Program, Young Farmers Program is ongoing. I can speak on and on. But I think what's important is that this government has tried to change the fundamentals of youth engagement, to move from just merely empowering our youth to investing in them. And that's the paradigm shift that we see even the global community, especially when you look at the UN and you look at the Africa Development Bank. The focus is on investing in our youth because our youth are investable and we can take a risk on our youth because they have the talent and they have the commitment to succeed.
So it's good that, some of these initiatives, but the question is that not only the efforts, because in a chain of activity, it's not only what you put in, it's also what you get out of it. So if you look at the unemployment rate, Honorable Minister, it's growing every year. Take, for example, from 2017, 8.39, 2018, 8.45, 2019, 8.53, 2020, 9.0%. That is your unemployment rate. If you say all of these have been put in place, but the figures are saying the different thing, how do you justify it to the Nigerians that you are serving?
Well, Sheon, it also boils down, without giving any excuses, it boils down to, it's a function of resources. We have seen government resources over time dwindle. When you also go to other countries where you find unemployment stabilized maybe for a while. It's a collaborative effort on the part of government, on the part of the private corporations working together, on the part of international NGOs working together. On our part here, you've seen government really try to allocate resources. They're competing resources. It's a huge country, 210 million people. The youth form a large part of this population. But also, we're trying a reset that emphasizes not just certificate, but that emphasizes skills, vocational and technical skills. That is the future of jobs. That's the future of decent jobs by the ILO, International Labour Organization, and the United Nations. The emphasis is making sure that we have technical and vocational skills. There are jobs out there that some of our graduates and our youth cannot take up because these jobs are digital jobs. Unless you have this added advantage of digital skills, you cannot pick up this job. And that's why the focus right now is making sure that we provide our youth with the digital skills they need to compete. Even when you go out of the country, as a Nigerian youth, you are going to need this digital knowledge and skills. And I think the concentration now, we're going to see that trajectory change, because I've seen in the last 2 years and 3 years, effort at deliberately making sure that we train our youth and give them digital skills. Shewon, as we speak, in the last 2 weeks, the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development commenced the training of 5,000 Nigerian youth across 6 geopolitical zones in our country on green stimulus, robotics, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and a couple of other digital skills. And like I said, it's an end-to-end thing, training into enterprise. Once you're trained, you're not just turned into the job market. You're provided the toolbox that you need, the finance and credit you need to become a self-starter, a wealth creator, employer of labor, and then eventually you can get off the unemployment market and also begin to employ other youth to work with you. Now, we'll have to just be patient because resources are dwindling, but efforts are on, concerted efforts at all levels to make sure that we bring down the unemployment numbers in our country.
So I'll take a look at quickly on one of the things that you said, the CBN job initiative, the youth investment fund that you spoke about. It was launched in cabinet last year. It's a 75 billion youth investment program. But as of May-June this year, just about 2 billion are so far been recorded to have been disbursed to about 5,000 or so Nigerian youths. 75 billion, that's the target, but only 2 billion out of that fund has been disbursed. Can you give us an update on that?
Absolutely, Sheung. Of course, let me explain. It's 25 billion naira per year, and its target is for 3 years. So cumulatively, it's 75 billion, so 25 billion naira per year. What we've done so far, remember that this is a loan, is a soft loan, single digit. It's not a grant. When it comes to a loan, there are processes that you have to go through, because eventually after the 1 year moratorium, any youth that takes this loan will have to pay back. And those processes do take them. We're being careful because most of our youth also believe that this is a grant. It's important to make sure that they understand it's a loan. It's important that we follow the financial processes to make sure that we do not run into any stormy weather. We've had just about 5,225 approved for the loan. And that's because we've also had a bit of technical issues with the processes of application, which we have already fine-tuned. And I assure you that when we open up that site again, we're going to be able to ratchet up the number of Nigerian youth that will benefit from the NYIF. I think it's important to note that this is the first time a government is giving our youth single-digit loan, investing directly in their innovative skills, their enterprise, and the ideas they have for businesses. I think that is very important. And I think that as many as of our youth that have applied themselves to this process will ensure that they get some funding. It might not be the exact figure that they expect, but they will get some funding.
Let me take you to the aspiration of so many Nigerian youths today, aside the fear of getting out of school, are not being able to get a job, and how they can get a living, eke out a living in a very difficult economic situation, is also their place in politics and governance in Nigeria. Well, here is an APC government that promised that it will have a very strong inclusion of the Nigerian youth in cabinet. Not only that, also in government. But if you look at it, Honorable Minister, you are perhaps one of the youngest in cabinet, and you are way over 50 years. So the question will be, what is the hope of an average Nigerian youth under the Buhari government?
Well, I think there's great hope. Under the Buhari government, this same president, Muhammadu Buhari, was the one that signed the Not Too Young to Run bill for our youth. That opened a door for our youth to be able to participate in politics at all levels. That was monumental and significant. And we've seen several of our youth walk through that door to become councillors, to become elected officers of the local government, the House of Assembly, and even at the National Assembly. That is significant. Now, beyond that, beyond political offices or elective offices, there are other areas in which our youth can also participate. Of course, we know that a gradual process of inclusion is necessary, but it's not only by political appointments alone. The elective offices that we have is critical. And I'm sure that if our youth apply themselves to these processes, they have an opportunity. As it is now, the youth of this country must be more assertive. They must also participate directly. They must not play second fiddle. They must seize the opportunities open to them, either in the political space, in the economic space, wherever they find them. There will be a room for political appointments. We want to see a greater inclusion of our youth. And I'm sure quite a number of our youth also, in the last 3 years, have been able to make their way into political appointments. That will increase over time. It's going to be just gradual. But I think that we should look beyond just political appointment for our youth. Look for their inclusion and participation, because we live under a democratic dispensation that gives any Nigerian youth who is convinced that he has an idea to step forward and also compete for any elective office. And I think that would be significant.
So perhaps the likes of yourself is going to be the youngest we might see in this cabinet. No hope of a younger person in this government. That's what it looks like, isn't it?
Sure, that's an absolute assumption. You know, I know that in this government, if you look beyond just being a minister, if you look at board members, if you look at some parastatals and agencies, they are being run by people who are about 40. You look at the AFCC chairman is just 40. And you just look at the data very closely. So we have young people in various positions in this government. And we just want to see that the number is ratcheted up. We want to see more of them in these political positions. But again, I emphasize that there are more elective positions than you have political positions. And I think most of our youth are brilliant enough. They are quite aware of the issues around our political development, and that if they put themselves through the system, that they will be able to get elected and they can impact the system for the better and make laws for our country.
The NYSC scheme is one way the government is directly working, and it's from the late 70s up to now. That effort is aimed at uniting Nigeria. And with what we're seeing, coronavirus has posed a very big trouble in terms of deployment. But latest report that we are hearing about coronavirus and infection rates in some of the camps. What can you tell us, Minister, about the decision of government in this respect?
Well, I just, this morning I had a meeting with the DG of NYSC to review the COVID-19 situation across the camps, NYSC camps across the country. And even from the NCDC report, we see a commendation from the NCDC because of the regime of surveillance that has been put in place across the NYSC camps. It's almost a rule of the thumb. Once anybody tests positive for COVID-19, you are not even allowed into the camp. You are turned up immediately, isolated. And if along the line there's constant testing, They find anyone with COVID-19, that person is isolated. I think the NYSC camps are no different from the society in which we also live in. But also, they have more stringent measures in these NYSC camps. And I think some of the data that is collected there have been so useful to the work of the NCDC. So on a continuous basis, as even the larger society battles with the containment of COVID-19 through non-pharmaceutical processes, we have the NYSC running a regime that is effective and has worked so well in the last 6 months.
In the mood of the International Youth Day, I came across a lot of names of Nigerians, of a lot of the athletes of Nigerian descent who competed for several other countries. How does that make you, as a Minister of Youth, in the willingness of people of Nigerian descent competing for other nations?
Well, you know, it makes me feel jealous. It makes me feel bad, because ordinarily I would have expected them to wear Nigerian colors. But also, you know, the decision to run, the decision to compete, the decision to decide which country's flag you bear is absolutely an individualistic decision that the athlete alone can make. But I think the challenge I've taken away from these growing numbers of Nigerians is to look inward and see what is the system that endeared them to these countries. And we've seen that there's a regime of grants that they get. We've seen that there are sporting facilities that support their training. We also see that they're able to get scholarship for their education. And I think these are some of the things we need to look inward and make sure that we put in place for our youth. I came back with a desire to make sure that we have a program in which our young athletes, the current one and aspiring ones, can benefit from. A program that is sustainable, where the issue of athletes' welfare, the question of grant, scholarship, education, coaching, it's just a package together. Once we're able to present the same package that these other countries are presenting to these athletes, then we can have the hope of being able to retain them and have them wear our colors.
As we wrap up the conversation, Minister, it might not be, since we touch on the issue of Olympics, let me ask you two questions in that respect. One is the outcome of that outing. You've been quoted to have said that is our best in the last 13 years or so. And perhaps 2 medals, that's the feat that we've seen. But your critics will say that's shambolic. That's, Olympics is supposed to be a joy of participation. Well, as a nation that is a giant of Africa, a lot of Nigerians believe that they deserve more. Are you disappointed in that outing?
Sheon, I am inspired by the outcome of our participation in the last Olympics. Inspired because I see greater possibilities. Again, it's the Olympics. Did I expect that we will win more medals? Absolutely. That was the expectation of virtually every country that went there. But also, it's also a function of what you put into your system. You talked about Nigerian athletes wearing the colors, Nigerians wearing the colors of other country. I think it's also a function of the kind of infrastructure in place, the kind of equipment, the kind of grants they have enjoyed. We do not have that kind of grant. A process has started already through our Adopt an Athlete program. We've seen several of our athletes, about 21 of them, get direct funding that has helped them. There have been testimonies to the fact that just through those adoption programs, some of them said that was the tonic they needed to be able to excel. And we saw quite a number of them excel. So, yes, I expected that we will have won more medals. But I also know that the efforts that were put on, I have absolute respect for every Nigerian athlete that went out there to compete. The Olympics, it's the highest level of competition, 205 countries, the best of the best. And I think that we can just build on the successes we have recorded so that when we head to France 2024, we will be able to do better. But there's work to be done.
Yeah, 74th position, Honorable Minister, and the kind of money running to over $1 billion that was expended in that respect. What would you say that is the major problem? Because administrative issue came out as one of the issues there and was embarrassing to the nation, to say the least.
Shaun, my response would be that 2 days ago, I gave a very detailed, personally signed, detailed response. In that response I gave, all the answers are there. We've returned. We've started work already, set up committees. We're doing reviews. There are programs we have started already. We're going to aggressively pursue them. So, Shaun, in that statement I gave 2 days ago, it was detailed, it was deliberate, so that we can get everybody on the same page. It's also important to make sure that people really understand what the sports development and administration is, what the issues are. It's not just anybody that really knows what's happening. And I think that in that statement, I was very careful, I was very deliberate in trying to provide some answers, also trying to show the steps that have been taken and the paths to the future.
Yes, because if you need to show the path to the future, also we need to know those who need to take the blame, because if money is spent, energies are put in this place, we need to know who to hold responsible and perhaps name and shame. But again, another thing that comes on the table, Honorable Minister, is the Puma Deal. And what happened when an athlete came and said, I had only one jersey to compete with, and there are jerseys and materials to be used, and they're there, and Nigerians are outraged about that. How do you respond to that Puma Deal?
Shaun, again, that matter is sub judice. I'm unable to comment on the Puma Deal. Again, I was very clear about that in my statement. Subject of litigation. It involves the AFN and Puma. This is the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, and I would like to leave it at that.
Okay, but the reason why I'm asking is because, the AFN is also under the ministry and the buck stops at your table. And for Nigerians who are watching you, who hold a lot of respect for you, Honorable Minister, and a level of integrity, they are hoping to hear an answer tonight when they heard that I was going to have a conversation with you. Can you give them somewhat a convincing answer tonight, Honorable Minister?
Well, when you say convincing answer, is it about the Puma Deal or something else? Again, like I said, there's litigation on the Puma Deal. It's just the practice, it's sub judice. I can't really comment on it. Again, whatever was signed was between the AFN, very clear, the AFN and Puma. The Ministry of Youth and Sport did not sign any document with Puma. And I want to leave it in that realm. But, what I can say, and I've said it in my statement, is very clear. Apologies have been made. Investigations are ongoing. We've set up a commission that started work already. We're taking the necessary steps. And I think that is where we need to take it from, to make sure that we do not have a repeat of what has happened before, but also to allow the processes that are in place to take place so that we can get the facts of the situation.
On that note, I must sincerely thank you, Honorable Minister, for your time tonight. But let me convey the message of some Nigerian youths to you. In 2018, the president, when he was signing the Not Too Young to Run bill, he told Nigerian youths that wait until after I run in 2019 before you run against me. If you may, and convey the message to the president that Nigerians are waiting to hear from him again whether or not he will vote and put the hand of a youth up, perhaps in the APC, come 2023. On that note, I must sincerely thank you, Honorable Minister, for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Shaun, for having me.
Thank you.